Hello, I'm Elizabeth Park, the director of the online library here at Bethel. This is a short video to walk you through how to research and write for your essay assignments. We want to talk about what you're going to write about and how to write about it in an academic essay. So, what to write about? The short answer for that is write about the topic that your facilitator has given you for the assignment. For the discuss post, you'll see questions for complete. There could be multiple questions. And then what you'll do is take that topic and do some research. You'll look at scholarly sources in the library. And if you need to use some professional websites, I'll teach you how to evaluate those as well. So let's get started. Scholarly sources. Now that you're back in school, it's important to use scholarly resources for the most reliable and the best information. A scholarly source, simply put, is a paper that is written by experts. Now, these experts may have a lot of life experience. Maybe they've owned a business for 60 years and they want to tell you what they learned. Or maybe they're experts that have gone to school and have studied long and hard, and they're writing a paper about the research that they have found. They write a paper and then they turn it into a whole nother group of experts. This other group of experts reviews their paper. They check for the information, they look for unfair bias, and they make sure that it includes in-depth information. Once it's reviewed, then it's published in a journal. And these journals are meant for students or professionals. They give you that information you need to learn and grow. So that's what a scholarly source is. And most of your facilitators will require 3 to 5 of those for any given assignment. Make sure to look at your specific assignment and see how many scholarly sources you're required to use. Now, where do you find those scholarly sources? The easy answer is the library. In the library, we have hundreds of thousands of online journals and online books. So let's walk through how to do a search in one of those databases, or maybe 2 of those databases. I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll talk about some strategies to find what you need. To go to the library website, first log into VCamp. After you've logged in, you'll see the library icon up here on the top right, and then you'll see several options. When you're looking for journal articles, we can click on Articles, and this will take you to the library website. Now, there's a lot of information here, but most of the time you can find what you need in these 1, 2, 3 boxes. Once you get into your upper level courses, you can use the subject guides over here on the left to find databases specific to criminal justice or fire science or maybe the English class that you're in. But for most of what you do, you'll be here on the 1, 2, 3. So in this first box, you'll find sources that are introductory. They'll give you easy to read overviews, which is really great if you're learning a lot of new things in class. Maybe there's some important words that you don't understand, or you need kind of an overview and easy to read introduction. We'll start there. The other boxes will take you to databases that have more specific information, in-depth research. So let's say that for your first assignment, your facilitator gave you the topic of critical thinking and student success. So you could begin by clicking on this one. Now it's going to ask you to log in because Bethel pays lots of money to make sure that our students have the best information. So this is information that's not freely available on the web. You need to log in to show them that you're a student with us and that we've paid for you. So it's really simple. We connected it to your Bethel email account. So all you need to do is click right here, and then it will ask you to sign in with your Bethel email account. And make sure that you enter the @bethelu.edu and then click next and enter your password. And now you've logged into the databases, and this is where all the online journals and the online books are. So to go back to that example about critical thinking, let's just start really big. We wouldn't enter the complete assignment prompt. So if your facilitator wrote a whole long question in the discuss post, don't copy and paste that whole thing. Don't enter all those words. Just pull out the important ones. So in the example that we're using, the important concepts are critical thinking and student success. So we can start very general and just type in critical thinking. And then to search, you would hit this little magnifying glass. Now we're going to see all kinds of results here in the middle. So here's some philosophy of education on critical thinking and what that means. And you can scroll down and see logical thinking. And this is a helpful example. Sometimes authors will use different words for a similar concept. So critical thinking and logical thinking are very closely related. So we can click on this title. It's not the exact word, but it's an important related concept, and it will talk about critical thinking. So you've got your article right here in the middle, and this is great. It's going to give you an overview about the importance of logical thinking and how that connects to critical thinking. So you can read through this. Take some notes on it for your assignment paper. And if you're going to use this information in your answer, make sure you get that APA reference. We're going to talk more about APA later, but I just want to point out that the databases will format that big long reference for you, which is amazing. When I went to school, we definitely had to do it the hard way. So you are very lucky to be going to school now. So to get the reference for this specific article, you'd come up here to the top right and click on that Cite button right there. Now it's going to show you lots of different ways of doing that. At Bethel, you are very lucky because we always do APA. For all your classes, it's the same. So just click on that APA 7th edition, and here it is. The reference is done for you. So we would just copy that whole thing and then paste it into your notes that you're taking on your research so that you'll have it later when you submit your paper. So that's how we got a general introduction to critical thinking, which is related to logical thinking. And you could go back and search for more. We can also look for more in-depth information by going back to the library website. We're back here with the 1, 2, 3. And let's click on this second button. So their website looks a little different, but it's very similar. They've got more search boxes up for you up here, which is nice. It makes it way more specific than like a regular old Google search. So let's type that critical thinking up here at the top. And because we can search more specifically, let's go ahead and look at how this relates to students. Now, my guess is you're more interested in college students than you are in kindergarten students, so we can make it that specific. We can type in college students in this second box. All right, so now you've got your two search boxes, and we can go ahead and click search. And there you go. We'll get all these results right here in the middle. So I can see some promising options already. Analysis of university students' thinking skills. All these titles are here in blue. The effect of critical thinking education. Lots of interesting things. So let's say we click on this one. If you click on the title, you'll see more information about it. So this was published in 2019, which is great. That's pretty recent. If it sounds good to you, you can read the complete article by coming over here to the left and clicking on full text. So this is going to show you the full article is right here in the middle. And at this point, you can read the whole article, or if you don't have time to read all of it right now, you can download it. If you kind of move your mouse around, you'll see there's a download button. You can print it. You can even email it to yourself. Where's that option? Here it is, the little email. So whatever you do, if you want to find all your articles on one day, read them the next day, write your essay the third day, that's one way of spreading out the work. But as with the other database, make sure you get that APA reference while you're here. So in EBSCO, you can click on this little yellow piece of paper. It says Cite, and it will show you all the different ways of citing it. So once again, we always want APA. You might have to scroll down a little bit, but you can do that. And then you would copy this big, long reference right there, and that's what will go into the end of your paper. So that is a quick overview of how you can find scholarly articles in the library. Those journal articles are inside databases, and you can get ones that are introductory overview in that one button, or you can get more in-depth information in the 2 or 3. You can also explore around those subject guides once you're into your criminal justice classes or English or history or something that's a little more specific. So that's the overview. Now, for some of your assignments, you may need to look at professional websites. Let's say you're doing a case study on Whole Foods and you want to look for a website that has information about Whole Foods. These websites most likely are not going to be scholarly sources, but it is important that you still get reliable information. So librarians came up with this lovely acronym called CRAP, which is very silly, but it is a helpful way to remember how to check a website to see if it's reliable. So if you're going to use a website in your paper, it won't count for a scholarly source, but make sure that it's still reliable. So first, when you're looking at the website that you found, ask yourself, is the information current? It's very important that you find out when it was published. You know, if you're looking at criminal justice statistics from the 1800s, it's not going to be relevant to 2020. It may give you a historical perspective, which is great, but If you need current information, it's important that you know when it was published. Secondly, is the information relevant to your assignment? Sometimes we can kind of go down a rabbit hole and a website is fascinating and interesting and very colorful, but you need to ask yourself, is it related to what your facilitator is asking you to study? Thirdly, who is the author? Do not use any websites when you don't know who the source is. You have to know if they're qualified to talk about what they're talking about. If my grandmother was talking to you about how to fly to the moon, you should ask the grandmother if she got a degree in this, if she knows what she's doing, if she's worked for NASA. Same thing with any website you use. Make sure that whoever wrote that website is qualified by education or who they're affiliated with. Next, is the information accurate? Is it correct? Does it line up with what you're learning in class? You have the gift of having an attend section with lectures, a read section with your textbook, and you can compare that information that you know is correct to the information you see on a website. Make sure that the information is correct and accurate. Lastly, what is the purpose of the author? There's always an agenda, so make sure you know the purpose of the author. If their purpose is to educate, to share what they learned, that's wonderful and that's great, but just make sure that you know what their purpose is. So that's how you would evaluate a website for reliable information. And once again, it doesn't mean that the website is a scholarly source. As we said earlier, a scholarly source has been reviewed by experts, it's been published in a journal or a paper, and its intent is to inform. So now you've got all this information on your assignment topic. How do you use it? How do you write about it? So, quick definition of writing a paper is you need an introduction, a body, and conclusion. And then you got to make sure that you give credit where credit is due. So that's when you use APA formatting to cite your sources. So let's dive in and talk about how you write about what you learned. A paper's introduction. You got to start by saying what your point is. We've all heard lots of rambling stories where you kind of wonder, where is this person going? What's the punchline? So in a paper introduction, you want to start with the punchline. What is your point? You may have heard your facilitator talk about a thesis. That is just your main argument. So what's your point? If they asked you about critical thinking and student success, then you need to say what your thesis is, that critical thinking is very important for a successful student because of X, Y, Z. And that's your thesis. And then it helps to give some context. Why is that important? Why is it important that you learn critical thinking as a student? Is it because it will help you to problem solve in the office, or it will help you to be a better member of your community? Why is your point important? So all of that goes in the introduction. That's kind of the short beginning part of the paper. Next up, you've got your paper body. So this, just like the human body, it's much larger than the introduction. This is where you do most of the heavy lifting. You've got to prove your point. So this is where you would explain your thesis and support it with all that research that you got from the library. This is where you want to talk about what you learned in the scholarly sources, and you may be quoting it directly. You could be summarizing or paraphrasing, but think of it like a conversation. You can share what you think about a specific issue and then talk about what the authors think. So it's kind of a back and forth, just like a conversation. It's important that you prove your point by using research and what you learned from scholarly sources. Lastly, your paper has a conclusion. This is where you wrap it all up. You summarize your points and you make it super clear how those points support your thesis. So that way you're underlining, this is what my point was, this is my answer to the assignment question, and that's why it's important. So now that you've done that work of writing the introduction, the body, the conclusion, you've got to make sure to give credit where credit is due. So all of that scholarly information that you're using, the statistics, all of it needs to be cited. So if you use information in a sentence, make sure you include an in-text citation. So that's the smaller part. It's just got the author's last name, the publication year, it's in parentheses. If you're doing an exact quote, then it would have the page number and you would put those exact words in quotation marks. And then those short itty bitty in-text citations, they match a longer reference that's at the end of your essay. So let me show you what that looks like. Sometimes it's helpful to just see an example in black and white. So let's pretend like this is a discuss response. You've got a couple sentences. This second sentence that you see here, I'm summarizing what I read. So I'm not using the exact words from the article, I'm summarizing it. And so I've got my in-text citation. See how it's inside the period of that sentence? And this specific source, it had 3 authors. So 3 different people got together, they did their research, they wrote the paper. And because it's so many authors, you just list the first one and then you do et al., which is a fancy way of saying all of those guys. So we do et al., and then we put the publication year. So that's when it was written. And that short little bit of in-text citation matches this longer reference where you put everything else, the title, where it was published, how to find it, all that good stuff. And you can see in this example, the next sentence, that has an exact quote. So that means I'm using the exact same words in the exact same order that I read in the article. And that is in quotation marks, which is very important. That's how you avoid plagiarism. And you give a little more information. So if it's an exact quote, you need to have that page number at the end. And I know I said this before, but all the periods and commas matter. It matters to follow the formatting. So I know it's super detailed, but that's why we have all the APA guidelines on the website. So please don't try to wing it or try to follow how you remember things to be. Just pull up that website, look at where the parentheses go, look at where the commas are, all that stuff. It's just kind of like following a rule book. So that's a quick overview of APA, but please do take a look at the APA website on the library, and that will show you how everything is cited differently. So it all depends on where you got the information. If it's a video recording, it'll be formatted one way. If it's a book, a print book, it's cited another way. So it just really depends on what your source is. So it's important that you do apply APA and use your sources. I can't underline this enough. Success in education depends on you learning new ideas and writing about them. This is what you're paying for. You're paying for a degree that taught you something, that made you better at your job, that helped you to be a more understanding member of your community. So please use your sources and use them well. Also, remember that we want to know what you think. So we don't want to read essays that are just a string of quotes from a bunch of other people. It's wonderful that you did your research, but we want to know what you think. So that's why Bethel's policy is that your paper should contain less than 15% direct quotes. So you do the math. If your Disqus post is 250 words, then figure out what 15% of that is and make sure you don't have more than that many words that are in a direct quote. Once again, this is because we want to hear what you think and what you've learned. So that's why we limit the number of quotations. And lastly, please avoid plagiarism. If you use someone else's words, put it in quotation marks and give them credit. If you use someone else's idea, give them credit too. The in-text citation will always be there, but it's very important that you avoid plagiarism because there are serious academic consequences when you do plagiarize. So we talked about what you're going to write about, how you're going to write about it. And the really quick summary is answer your assignment question with a thesis that is supported by research. So all of this information is covered in depth in the library website. If you feel like you need to look a little bit longer at APA, go to the library website, click on that APA tab. If you want to learn more about how to get fancy searching the databases, we've got lots of videos, we've got handouts. And also, most importantly, remember that librarians are here to help. We are with you through your whole program. You'll have some facilitators for 5 to 8 weeks or less, but a librarian is with you the whole time. And we actually have a Bethel librarian available 7 days a week. So check out our website. You'll see our exact hours. You can contact us by email, by phone. You can chat online on the library website. But please know that this is our job. We are more than happy to help you find what you need quickly, to incorporate it into your writing and your thinking, and to give credit where credit is due. So don't hesitate to contact us. We are more than happy to help.